All right, welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. Hope everybody out there had a fantastic weekend and your weeks are off to a good start. Coming up on the show today, following the Deebo Samuel trade to the Washington Commanders in exchange for a fifth-round pick, will Brandon Aiyuk get traded next? I also want to talk about a player who could fill the role of Deebo and be a good replacement in the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft. And what does this receiver room look like going into the 2025 season? One player in particular is going to have to step up. Before we dive into all of that, we're 550 people away from 158,000 subscribers. NFL free agency starts next week. The NFL doesn't take any breaks. And then the 2025 NFL Draft is at the end of April. A huge offseason coming up for the Niners, which has already been busy. Two major coaching hirings on this staff under Kyle Shanahan. Deebo Samuel got dealt. So subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a thing. So huge news over the weekend across the NFL and for the 49ers and for 49er fans, considering the player and the fan favorite that Deebo became ever since being a second-round pick out of South Carolina in the 2019 draft. The Niners traded Deebo Samuel away to the Commanders for a fifth-round pick, and the Commanders are going to take on all of Deebo's salary, which is really huge in the midst of this trade. This saves the Niners $17.5 million, which is big for this team. And a lot of people are saying the Niners got fleeced. I can't believe they only got a fifth-round pick. But why was the value so low? You have to ask yourself that question. The Commanders are not trading for Deebo, who is coming off a 2021 first-team All-Pro season. He's coming off the worst year of his career. So why did the Niners only get a fifth-round pick? Because Deebo did not play well last year, and his value tanked because of it. And Washington is taking on all of that salary. And I thought the best-case scenario if the Niners were to have traded Deebo was going to be this, that the Niners were going to get back a fourth-round pick. They get back a fifth. So that's in the range of the compensation via the draft that I thought the Niners were going to receive if they could trade Deebo away, because he's coming off that career worst year. Ideally, you wanted the team and the acquiring squad to take on that salary. The Commanders are, but Deebo Samuel is also going into a lame duck year. So if he plays well, then Washington is probably going to have to give him a contract extension as well. Now, why did the Commanders make this move? With Deebo Samuel coming off a lackluster 2024 campaign in which all of his numbers plummeted, the body language was awful. Well, you think about the Commanders situation right now. Top 5 in cap space in the NFL. Rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels is coming off one of the best rookie seasons that we've ever seen from a rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL. If you exercise his fifth-year option, he is under team control for the next 4 years starting in 2025. And even though he's on that rookie contract and he's making some decent money, it pales in comparison to the top 10 highest-paid quarterbacks in the NFL, which are all over $50 million per year. And so from a team-building strategical standpoint, the Commanders are trying to take advantage of Daniels being on that rookie contract. He's already an elite player, and it's a bargain if he continues to develop and progress the way that you project him to at that price tag. And so the Commanders are trying to go all in on Daniels being under that rookie contract, coming off a year in which they surprised everybody. Their rebuilding process is well ahead of schedule. They just made it to the NFC Championship game, and they're firm players in the NFC. And they also needed a number 2 wide receiver and another playmaker on that team. Plus, with Adam Peters being the Commanders general manager, he used to be the Niners assistant GM. He was a part of the front office that drafted Deebo. In fact, his voice was loud in being a proponent of the Niners taking him in the 2019 NFL Draft. So he knows how to use Deebo. He is familiar with the player. He knows the cultural fit that he is. And I know that Deebo's tenure ended on a sour note with the Niners, but he was a fan favorite for a reason. He led the Niners out of the locker room for a reason. He was a team captain. He was holding that boombox for a reason, and the Commanders are a young, ascending team. They are bringing in a player who is widely respected across the entire NFL, who in big games has been an absolute dog and baller, who has big-time playoff experience, who's played in 2 Super Bowls, and I think the Commanders look at Deebo as being a perfect fit for what they need and the weapon that they can use under Cliff Kingsbury. And Anthony Lynn is also on that coaching staff, and Deebo knows him very well. Deebo asks for a fresh start, he gets it. And then the Niners, John Lynch talked about this, they wanted to get younger. They wanted to clear up some cap space. They wanted to create some financial wiggle room now and in the future, and they do that, and they can use a fresh start in moving on from Deebo. So the Niners get what they were looking for as well. Of course, after you make a trade like that, when you trade away a player who for more than a half a decade has been a tremendous player for your ball club, a lot of questions now linger and hover over your organization. What did the Niners do at wide receiver going into 2025? Because the wide receiver room right now is Brandon Aiyuk, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Jacob Cowing. So wide receiver becomes a need now in the NFL draft and or in NFL free agency. Juwan Jennings is entering the final year of his contract. Given the cultural fit that he has, the play style that he's exhibited, the toughness, the player development, the leadership qualities, the physicality that he brings to the table, I expect Juwan Jennings, with him also being a huge bargain for this team, at about $7 million, if I'm not mistaken, to be re-signed to a contract extension. And it won't come close to Deebo. And so you get rid of Deebo, you still have Jennings, you sign him to a contract extension, and I think that his playing style will continue to age well, and if he didn't get kicked out of that Arizona game in Week 18, he would have had a 1,000-yard season. He can be an outside guy, an inside guy, and he'll be a marquee contributor for this team moving forward, and I think the Niners have to, should, and will sign him to a contract extension. Also has a really good on-field chemistry element to him with Brock Purdy, who the Niners figure to sign to a contract extension. So expect Jennings to sign a contract extension. Ricky Pearsall becomes a player who needs to step up after the Deebo Samuel trade. And look, I don't think the Niners make this move if they don't feel good about Pearsall moving forward. We saw flashes this year. Keep in mind, barely practiced during training camp, did not play in the preseason, then he got shot in the chest. And so that stalled his development a little bit. But we saw some flashes. That game against the Buccaneers coming out of the bye week, 4 catches, 73 yards, the long touchdown, the stutter step to beat Antoine Winfield to the pylon to get into the box. That was an impressive play. Then he had some key catches in that game, especially on that game-winning drive for Brock Purdy, to put them in a position for Jake Moody to actually make the game-winning kick after he missed 3 prior to that. And then he went off for 8 catches, 141 yards against Detroit. The touchdown that he had in that game, a contested grab on Brian Branch, one of the top DBs in the game. And then the regular season finale, 6 catches for 69 yards against Arizona and a touchdown, which was once again a contested catch. He has footwork. He has route running. He has good hands. He's a little small and slight, which is a concern for me. There are lingering injury concerns that I have with that shoulder. If he lands on it, big chance of re-injury, considering the history there. But late in the year, he played well. Late in the year, he showed ability. Late in the year, he started to get on the same page as Brock Purdy. And there was some long speed that we saw where he did get behind the defense a couple of times. And not all of those plays resulted in catches. Brock Purdy or Joshua Dobbs missed on a couple of those long balls. But the deep threat ability is still there. And I will say this. Look out for this player in the NFL draft because I really, really like him. After the Deebo Samuel trade, a player in the upcoming NFL draft who I've become very intrigued by is Savion Williams out of TCU. Huge size at 6'4", 222, ran a 4.48 40-yard dash, the fastest of any offensive prospect at his size or larger in the NFL Combine. Last year with TCU, he had 60 catches, 611 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, but also 51 carries for 322 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. TCU put him in the backfield as a running back. He is a Deebo Samuel clone who's bigger than Deebo and maybe even faster than Deebo. So if you're looking for a Deebo replacement, that is the guy right there. The Niners met formally with him at the NFL Combine, and when I was around him, he said he's been told he'd be a great fit for the Niners given how they've used Deebo. So for a second-round pick, look out for Savion Williams as a prospect for San Francisco. Now, of course, after the Niners moved on from Deebo, we also have to talk about this. Is Brandon Aiyuk going to get traded next? I asked John Lynch directly. There are reports coming out from Indianapolis that you are taking calls on Aiyuk, that other teams are inquiring about him, poking around, and are interested in him. You know what John Lynch said? He said, at some point, we have to get younger. At some point, after being one of the highest cash-spending teams in the NFL over the last several years, we have to reset the salary cap a little bit. Well, a few days later, they traded Deebo Samuel away. That allows them to get younger and to reset the cash flow a bit. But you know what John Lynch did not say? We are not trading away Brandon Aiyuk. And this was a year after Brandon Aiyuk was one of the biggest storylines across the entire NFL at the NFL Combine because there were a lot of questions about his future. Were the Niners going to trade him? Were they going to sign him to a contract extension? And the Niners ended up giving him a 4-year, $120 million contract. But before I asked John Lynch that question, there was the report from Diana Rossini that teams are poking around on Aiyuk. And then after the Niners made John Lynch available to the media, there were reports all throughout the rest of the week that the Niners were taking calls on Deebo and they were taking calls on Aiyuk. If they want to manage the salary cap, if they want to free up some dollars now and in the future, if they want to get younger across their roster and reset a little bit with the salary cap, a Brandon Aiyuk trade cannot be ruled out. It's being reported on by all of the top NFL insiders, and John Lynch's response spoke volumes. It was a what the F type of answer to my question because he did not shoot it down. And so I would be surprised if the Niners traded Aiyuk. He's coming off a torn ACL, MCL, other structural damage in that knee. The Niners just signed him to a 4-year, $120 million contract coming off that all-pro season where he's making $30 million per year. And so for another team, you might be desperate for a wideout, but are you desperate enough to trade for Aiyuk to take on that salary with the injury questions around him? I think it'd be a crazy move for a team to trade for Aiyuk. But if the Niners like the offer, would it be smart for them to trade a banged-up player who they owe a lot of money to, where they can save money and get younger at that position and reset that wide receiver room a little bit? And it also frees up dollars for a contract extension to a player like George Kittle, to a player like Fred Warner, to a player like Brock Purdy. And you can draft a Savion Williams. You can draft another wide receiver who you like to build your offensive core around Brock Purdy. And so a trade of Aiyuk is a possibility, and it becomes something interesting to monitor as we look ahead to free agency and the NFL draft. Thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Hopefully, I'll be back with another video a little bit later today, and that's why you hit that subscribe button right here on the 49ers Report.